Good afternoon. I'm Danielle Schenk in the 1011 Now Alert Center with this week's Lancaster Lookout. So joining me today is Chief Deputy Ben Houchin with the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. How's it going today?
Great.
Awesome. So today we're following up on a Raymond Central case and an in-custody death investigation, making some headlines. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. But first, we'll start with LSO asking for the public's help finding a wanted man. So what can you tell us?
Well, Christopher Fleming has failed to show up at court, and he had a warrant come out on April 22nd, and it is for terroristic threats and an attempt of a Class 4 felony. And this stems from a case that the Lincoln Police Department worked on in July of 2024. He and the driver, he was the passenger in the vehicle, were on O Street near 66th. And for some reason, he pointed a replica Glock handgun at a 17-year-old child. The child called, and the Lincoln Police Department did a great job and located the vehicle. And when they got him out and searched the vehicle, they found the toy gun. They found cocaine, meth, and marijuana, and a couple of explosive devices in the vehicle, where they ended up having to call Lincoln Fire and Rescue to come and take care of those explosive devices. So he has missed court a lot in the past. We do not know where he is. We do think he's still in the area, though, so we would love to have some information on that. He has an extensive criminal history, and we please everybody, again, if you see him or know where he is, don't approach, just call 911 and let the authorities come get it. And our fugitive task force would love to have information if you know where he is, and they would love to come out and get him. And if you use Crime Stoppers, you can get a cash reward, and you don't have to say who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with this case, the terroristic threats was for most recent charge, or back when he pulled the fake gun?
When he pulled the fake gun, that's what the case is from. That's what the warrants are for. He, like I said, he has failed to appear several different times, and it's a little frustrating. We seem to arrest him, and then he gets out and doesn't come to court again. So again, we'd like to get him into custody. Like I said, last contact he has, I believe, was for a theft back in March of this year. So we believe he's still out and about. We just don't have a good address right at this point.
Okay, so very in and out of the authorities' hands. And so kind of giving this underlying case, do you believe that he poses a threat to the public? Maybe he does have some weapons?
He has been arrested in the past for being in possession of firearms by a prohibited person. So he must not have at that time been able to get a real one. And he's probably very lucky he didn't do that to a different person who may have had a real weapon and
not put up with any of that.
Yes, and just not a very intelligent thing to do. And we do have road rages with real weapons too. So it's a scary situation, and I know people get upset and mad, but it's certainly not worth losing your freedom over by getting so mad and doing something like this.
And so you don't know where he was last seen, but are there any areas in Lincoln that he might frequent, maybe Lancaster County?
He's been at the lakes. We've known that. We've contacted him there. He has stolen a scooter down at the UNL campus. He just goes anywhere he can, and a lot of times when people are wanted, they do a lot of couch surfing and going from house to house, and whoever will let them in and stay there for a while.
And so does he have maybe any identifying features? I mean, this is his mugshot, but does he have any known tattoos or maybe even aliases, things that he goes by a different name when he's out and about?
Well, we do know the picture that we have of him is the last we've known. And of course, they can always shave their beards and do all that. I do not know of any tattoos. I do know he likes to be out at the lakes and do that. But this weather's been
Yeah,
warm and cold,
yeah.
so I don't know if he's out there or what. But again, I'm sure somebody in the community knows where he is, and we'd love to hear from him.
Would you know if there's any sort of vehicle that's maybe been associated to him that the public should watch out for?
The last several cars, he has not been contacted in cars for a little while. He does not have a driver's license. He just has an ID card, so he shouldn't be driving. That doesn't always stop everybody. But we do not have anything right now that says he look for this vehicle.
Okay, and so you mentioned obviously some tips that people can reach out to you guys anonymously. What are some ways that people can get in touch with Lancaster Lookout?
Well, of course, I mean, if you can always call the non-emergency number and talk to dispatch, which is 402-441-6000. You can call us at our office, and that is 402-441-6500. You can contact Crime Stoppers and get a hold of them at that. Or we also have some tip lines. We have our LSO email, but the one thing with that is that's not monitored all the time. So the best way is just to call in and give that information, or Crime Stoppers is the other way.
That app also very helpful.
Yes.
And so Fleming is one of a handful of wanted individuals. The full list can be found on lancasterlookout.com. So a few others.
Yeah, we'll take information on any of them, not just on Fleming.
Christopher Fleming.
Yep.
All right. Well, for anyone that might just be joining us here, Chief Deputy Houchin has been sharing some additional details about a wanted man, Christopher Fleming. And so if you missed that part of the conversation, we will have it in full on our website and app later today. And so now we'll be following up on a couple of cases making headlines this week. The Raymond Central substitute teacher cited for making some disturbing comments, and then LSO's in custody death investigation involving the Houston murder suspect arrested here in Lincoln back in March. So we'll start with the Raymond Central case. What additional details can you kind of share about the substitute teacher who allegedly made inappropriate and concerning statements to Raymond Central junior and senior high school students last Friday?
Well, it was third period and fourth period. It was choir and band for the sixth grade students. He had been out there before and substituted in the past. Don't really know what made him make these kind of comments. There was certainly some children who were concerned enough that they left the classroom and went and found another trusted teacher and let them know what was going on so that could be stopped. It's a little bit, I'm sure all the parents who are concerned. We had 5 deputies out there because we had 25 sixth graders that we had to interview on this case.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, as parents start to hear these things, they begin to worry about that. And so the school, my daughters go to school out there, and they sent out some information just to let everybody know, hey, this is what's going on, but that it is not an emergency and nobody's in danger. So I'm sure parents appreciated that part of it. But yeah, through 2 classes, like I said during the briefing today, they were disturbing. I can understand why the children began to think this is inappropriate and wrong. I know through some of the interviews, the kids thought at first it was kind of funny, but as it continued and escalated, it wasn't funny anymore, and that's when they became concerned. You would think a 44-year-old man who deals with children would know that this was not the thing to do, and very inappropriate, and that's the reason why we did the 2 counts of disturbing the peace, one for the third period and one for the fourth period of the class of what he did.
Okay. And so I know you can't specifically say what those comments are, but maybe just what the nature that they were allegedly made as, like a threat, violence to the kids, to the school in general. What
it was to the kids. You could really take it. I don't know if he meant to make it as a threat, but I could understand why the children would take it that way. And again, you don't threaten to take children and put them places and do that, especially in a school setting and being a teacher who's supposed to be a mentor to these children and not somebody that they're concerned about.
And so you mentioned that this was that you interviewed 25 sixth graders, and so I think a few of them had left the class to go talk to a trusted adult. What are your thoughts on how these children reacted to realize that something was wrong and then go find a trusted adult to tell?
Well, one thing is somebody has taught them the proper way of when you don't feel comfortable to go do something about it, and that's what they did. I don't know the children, but boy, that was certainly a mature thing to do for a sixth grade child, to go figure out that this is wrong and we need to get it stopped. And like I said, it must have bothered them to do that for a child to get out of class and go out and find somebody. That's you certainly don't hear about that a lot going on in schools.
And so was it more like maybe several comments then that they sat with, or did they just realize that one comment just really hit and you're like, no, I need to go tell somebody?
There were numerous comments that were being made, and like I said, it kind of escalated as it went on. And at first, I think some of the children believed it was just kind of him joking, but at some point, it became past a joke and inappropriate.
And so was it that teacher that the students had told that then reported it to LSO, or who kind of reached out to you guys about this?
The assistant principal is who reached out. As you know, we have school resource officers in our schools. They reached out to them, and it was a little belated. I think they needed to kind of figure out what they had and doing. I do not believe the substitute teacher finished the day at the school, and then once we got notified, then we had to get our resources and get deputies up there so that we could conduct the interviews and get that done, because it was Friday and it was in the afternoon when we started doing the interviews, and we wanted to make sure we got them done before going into the weekend.
Right. And so did Mr. Carmen admit to making these comments or kind of nature, or how did he kind of take it if LSO spoke to him?
He certainly accepted the citation without any issues. I can't comment on everything he said. During the interview with him, he did talk with us, and I feel very strongly that the citations needed to be written.
And so you mentioned that he was 2 counts of disturbing the peace. Now, were there any other charges considered, maybe like terroristic threats, anything like that?
We did consider terroristic threats and also misdemeanor child abuse. After we got through all the information, we believed that disturbing the peace was the strongest one, and that we could be able to prove that.
And so is there the potential for additional charges later down the road, or is this kind of a closed case?
Well, the county attorney is the one who makes the charging decisions. So they have been forwarded all the reports and are reviewing it, and will make the decisions. They have the authority to raise them, change them, or dismiss them. But we work really hard to make sure especially in a situation with this, with students and teachers in a school, we want to make sure that when we write a ticket that it's very strong.
And so has Carmen had any prior law enforcement contacts involving any sort of threats, schools, or maybe some similar disturbing behavior?
Nothing like this at all. He had some issues with his driving behavior, but this is the first one of this nature that we've had to deal with him, at least in Lincoln, Lancaster County.
And so 1011 has also learned that Carmen is no longer employed by Raymond Central Public Schools, as you had mentioned too, that he didn't finish out the day. The district did confirm that to parents in an email last week. So now we'll move on to arguably the biggest headline to come out of yesterday. Mr. Parrott.
Yes.
Let's see if we get everything changed here. So if you're just joining our stream, we started by breaking down the case involving a wanted man, Christopher Fleming, and then moved on to the Raymond Central substitute teacher, cited for making disturbing comments in class, and then now yesterday's biggest story, the in-custody death involving the Houston murder suspect arrested here in Lincoln. He's been in jail for couple of months. But in short, 64-year-old Floyd William Parrott, who you're seeing in this video here, died yesterday morning in the Lancaster County Jail while awaiting extradition back to Texas. This Lover's Lane killing remains one of Houston's best-known cold cases from the 1990s. So this is a loaded question right off the bat, but can you confirm the apparent cause of death, the manner of death? The Harris County DA officials have publicly said it was a suicide, but can LSO confirm that?
Right now, our investigation is ongoing. We just had the autopsy that was completed this morning. It started at 8:30. We are not able or willing to come out right now and give a cause of death in our investigation. One of the things, especially when it's this public, we want to make sure that we have our ducks in a row and our T's are crossed and I's are dotted before we come out and say anything and give a cause of death. We also have the issue of the grand jury, as County Attorney Pat Condon mentioned yesterday during our briefing. That's one of the state laws, and some of the information we just can't let out into the public until after the grand jury has convened and heard the case.
And so I think something that we were talking about here in the newsroom yesterday is because our sister station down in Houston was getting some information. They're rolling with this, that it was a suicide from the Harris County DA giving that information. Can you kind of explain why the Texas officials are releasing some of this information, getting that out to our Houston sister station maybe before we're learning of it when it happened here in Nebraska?
I do know that law enforcement up here, some different agencies, not LSO or the Lincoln Police Department, but had been in contact with Harris County authorities down there. I'm a little surprised how they could know it was a suicide and state that, because that certainly wasn't coming from us, and we were the investigating agency. So I'm guessing they're probably assuming that's what it was, but by no means do I feel comfortable or any of my investigators feel comfortable at this point saying that. And, you would like to hope that those would wait until we had a chance to let people know what is going on and don't just make some assumptions on that, because for sure that we don't feel comfortable saying that.
Yeah, and making sure ducks are in a row and all the facts are behind it to back it up. That's what people appreciate is an honest authorities giving them the correct details when it's warranted.
And I know down there, and they've been working on this case for a long time. As you know, it happened in 1990, so it's been over 36 years. I know that there's an investigator that's been working on it for the last 10 years, and I think they really wanted to bring justice to the victims' families, and I understand that part on wanting to do that, and I also understand their interest down there into the case. But again, I'd like to make sure that we get the investigation completed before everybody knows everything. And
get the results from the autopsy this morning. So can you kind of walk us through what happened when Parrott was found unresponsive yesterday morning, kind of what measures were taken before he was pronounced dead? I know the doors were open for a while. He had not come out. They went, correctional officers went in to check on him to make sure he was okay. They found him in unconscious state. They did do CPR and contacted medical assistants to come in there. And once they got there, they pronounced him dead at the scene, and that's when we got involved into the investigation. As you know, it's an in-custody death, so it needs to be investigated, and the county attorney's office asked the sheriff's office to conduct that investigation. And so was Parrott on a suicide watch, medical watch, or any other maybe special housing monitoring status before his death? Not that I'm aware of, no. Okay. And so we also understand that a roommate, a cellmate had been mentioned yesterday, but he wasn't present during that time. Where was the inmate? Just was off somewhere? He had already left the room and been out of there. Because you mentioned that, all the cells were open. So. Opened in that, so. Okay, and so at this point, have investigators found any signs of foul play, or is this being handled differently than that?
We handle every investigation like this as if it is a homicide, and that way you don't miss anything. And so I know our investigators have done a thorough investigation, but again, with the grand jury going to be needed, I can't really mention any of those kind of things at this point in time.
Right. And so Lancaster County Attorney Pat Condon, as you said, had an autopsy scheduled for this morning. What are the next steps with that? When might some information be released regarding that?
Well, we're going to have to probably wait about 10 to 12 weeks on the lab results to come back, and you cannot complete an autopsy final report without that. So we will be waiting until that and examine what information. And again, we're still going over. There's a lot of film to do. We conducted several interviews through that and the investigation, and also there's phone calls. They do have tablets and information. So we're going to have to go through that to just make sure we get a clear picture of exactly what happened and Mr. Parrott's mindset during the last couple of days.
Right. A lot of information and evidence to go through. Now, do you know much about the status of his timeline to extradition back to Texas? I think we understood that there is actually a hearing tomorrow for him.
Yeah, there was supposed to be a hearing on that. He was fighting it, and the governor's warrant had been issued. He was. There would have been another. I'm guessing in the next 2 weeks would have been a time frame that he would have been picked up by authorities from Texas and brought back. But I do not know the exact time that would have happened.
Okay. And so another major question kind of follows the Harris County DA's statement. We have that in full on our website if you're curious as to what was said. But they mentioned that they were down in Louisiana looking into cold cases potentially linked to Parrott. Has LSO been contacted by any outside agencies about possible cold cases tied to him?
We have not. I'm sure everybody would be contacting Harris County because they're running the investigation and looking into it. And I did hear that when we notified or had spoke with them that they were in Louisiana conducting some interviews and doing that. But I don't have a whole lot of information on that.
Yeah, so maybe just the tip of the iceberg here is how much needs to kind of play out here in the coming weeks. But has Parrott maybe been looked to in connection with any unsolved cases here locally? How long was he been in Lincoln? I don't know if that information had been relayed of how long he had been hiding out here.
I'm not for sure how long he's been there here in Lincoln. I do know he got arrested on March 26th of this year, and he was living in an apartment with who I believe was his wife. So he had been here at least for some time.
Yeah, enough to establish a little bit of a life.
Yeah, and we had not had, in the Lincoln Police Department or us, had any contact with him prior to his arrest on the 26th.
Okay. Well, before we kind of wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to mention about either of these cases?
I'm just proud of our people, and they go out and they do so much great work and really ask the hard questions and do the hard work, and just proud, on a Friday having 25 kids to have to interview and go through that and deal. Some of them, it bothered. So having to deal with their emotions and doing that. We just have a great group of individuals working at the sheriff's office and just really proud of them. And they make the sheriff and I look very good. They really do. Proud of them.
Well, you trained them up well. You have a hand in that.
I have a hand in that. And luckily we do. We're able, with our county board and some other funding, get our people some of the best equipment and the best training. And it shows when these things pop up, because we're able to deal with them and work hard. And we have some great relationships with the Nebraska State Patrol and Lincoln Police Department and UNL too. And I think people are real lucky in this community with the law enforcement they have.
And so this weekend, on a much lighter note, the Lincoln Marathon is happening. What's LSO's role here this weekend for that?
Well, like last year, we have our Bearcat, which is our armored vehicle. The Lincoln Police Department asked us to have that out there. People like to look at
a little bit for show.
On that. And so we have that. That's our part with it. And I just hope everybody has a safe time it looks like it'd be pretty good
Yeah.
weather to be out running. So hope everybody has a great time and enjoys it. And I know the Lincoln Police Department does a ton of work to make sure everybody's out there and is safe. So go out and enjoy it. Lots of people in town this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. A great weekend, great weather. I know Bill, when he did his next big change, was talking a lot about how it's going to be kind of perfect weather for running. If we were runners, we'd be out there too.
Unlike the concert last week, this is
Yeah.
a lot better
Yeah.
weather. Yeah.
I know. How much did LSO have any involvement with that? Just maybe.
We had 11 people working the concert. UNL Police Department hires deputies off duty to come down and help with the security. As you can imagine, they don't have enough.
Sure. For a big venue like that, for
venues
sure.
like that. So us, Nebraska State Patrol, Lincoln Police Department, again, that's one of those times that we all get together and work well. And it was, I know people were upset because of the weather. And
the communication was a little rough, but you don't put on a concert at Memorial Stadium too often.
The last one I think was Garth Brooks that was on there, and then they also had the volleyball game there with the concert after that. So yes, it's sad. It's hard to know what exactly is going to happen in April with the weather in Lincoln, Nebraska. It could change, but at least Zach Bryan got to be able to get out there and sing. But I will be honest, the last two songs it started to pour, and it's been a long time I've been that wet in my uniform.
So you were out there,
Yes.
hearing a little bit of it. You a Zach Bryan fan, or
I
Hear a song
I hear a song there and there. A lot of people really are fans of him. We didn't have a whole lot of issues out there, and that was good, and people enjoyed it, and people got home safe. But I do know some people gave up and went home and did not go to the concert.
Yeah, I mean, weather can only do so much about that, but a great job by law enforcement to provide security for such a big event that doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, but I'm hearing just rumor mill that there's going to be more. Don't know, but out there. But it's a great venue, and for those kind of events, and it's kind of interesting that they are starting to have more of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as I know, Savannah.
Bananas
are heading here in the very near future. So
yeah, and I wonder, we'll have to. I don't know how soon it is that they're coming, or when renovations might start on the stadium. I know all of that's kind of in the works, but that gets beyond what both you and I are officials on. So
but they have a big following.
Yes, Savannah Bananas are fun to watch. I see them on social media. That'll be another good time out.
Yeah, I was at a conference in Baltimore, and we come in, and there's people running around in yellow and bananas, and I had no idea. And they were there at the Baltimore Stadium, and I got to look over and watch them from my hotel room.
Oh,
so
goodness.
that's my first experience with them.
Yeah, are you going to go out there when they're at Memorial or either the Haymarket? I think.
If they need security done by the sheriff's office and ask for it, I will be probably heading out there.
The first in line to go see the Bananas. All right. Well, ending on some lighter news after talking about wanted man, the incident at Raymond Central, and an in-custody death investigation. So if you missed our conversation here today, we will have it in full on our website and app. So Chief Deputy Houchin, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. See you next month.
See you next month. And so stay tuned to our website. Follow us on all our social platforms, of course, and install our Roku app for the latest news of the day. From our newsroom to wherever you are, we'll see you on the next stream.
1011 News is everywhere. Download our smart TV apps and follow us on social media at 1011 News.